There is a question that seems very simple, but if you dare to face it honestly, it can shake the entire way you see the world. It is not a question born from hatred, nor does it require violence. Yet it is powerful enough to expose the most dangerous trait in human beings: arrogance disguised as reason. The question is this: if a creature only causes inconvenience, only annoys people, and even carries disease, why does it exist at all? And more importantly, who gave human beings the authority to decide that a creation is useless? Most people do not realize that the moment this question is asked, humans unconsciously place themselves at the center of the universe. Everything is judged by a single standard. Does it benefit me or not? If it brings comfort, it is praised. If it causes inconvenience, it is treated as a mistake. And at that point, the word meaningless stops being a description and becomes a verdict. And the one signing that verdict is none other than the human being. The danger does not lie in the question itself, but in the assumption hidden beneath it. The assumption that humans understand enough to decide what deserves to exist. The assumption that human intellect, despite its limits, can stand on equal ground with the wisdom of the Creator. Once that assumption is accepted, all of creation is summoned before the court of the ego. And it is there that faith begins to erode, not through ignorance, but through excessive confidence in one's own understanding. The Quran does not avoid this arrogance. It confronts it directly with an example that unsettles many and even invites mockery. Allah declares that He is not ashamed to give an example of a mosquito, or something even smaller than it. For those who believe, it is truth. For those who deny, it becomes a reason for ridicule. But that very reaction exposes the deep divide between two worldviews. One sees meaning beyond size. The other recognizes value only when something directly serves the self. The mosquito is not mentioned because it is grand. It is mentioned because it is so small that people despise it. And within that contempt, human nature is exposed. Because if a creature so tiny can still cause discomfort, steal sleep, provoke anxiety, and even fear, then the real question is no longer why does it exist, but why do humans believe themselves to be untouchable? We live in an age where people believe they control everything. And technology creates the illusion of power. Knowledge creates the illusion of omnipotence. Yet all it takes is one small, unexpected factor for that sense of security to collapse. A creature smaller than a speck of dust is enough to remind humanity that control always has limits. And that limit is not failure. It is the truth of being human. If you are watching this on Prophetic History Explained, pause for a moment. Because what follows is not really about a tiny creature. It is about us. This is not an attempt to convince you with statistics or dry scientific arguments. It is an invitation to face a deeper question. What happens when human beings forget their place in the order Allah has established? Some lessons do not come through dramatic events. Some truths do not require thunder or fire from the sky. Sometimes, Allah teaches through what people consider trivial, in order to expose what they fear confronting most, their own arrogance. And that is why the story of a tiny creature becomes one of the most powerful warnings in the history of faith. If this opening has touched something deep within you, if you are curious how such a small creation can carry such a great lesson, stay until the end. The conclusion may cause you to see yourself in an entirely different way. And before we continue, subscribe to Prophetic History Explained. Your support allows us to keep bringing stories of history, faith, and meaning that few dare to explore honestly and completely. There is a truth more difficult for humans to accept than failure: the feeling of losing control to something they consider too small to matter. And people can endure great challenges because they allow preparation and strategy. But when helplessness comes from something minor, ordinary, nearly invisible, What is wounded is not the body, but pride. A small creature appears without asking permission. It does not roar. It does not threaten. It hums quietly in the dark, touches the skin lightly, and leaves a tiny mark. Yet that is enough to shatter the sense of security humans have built. A sleepless night, irritation without a clear reason, discomfort that lingers longer than it should. And then a silent question emerges. Why can I not control something this small? Humans do not easily accept limits to their power. They are used to believing that with enough knowledge, tools, and technology, every problem can be solved. But there are moments when a small detail exposes the fragility of that confidence. Not because the creature is powerful, but because humans are accustomed to believing they always dominate. The irritation caused by a mosquito is not about harm, but about intrusion. It breaks the illusion that humans are absolute masters of their space. It reminds them that no matter how sealed the room, no matter how advanced the technology, some things remain beyond full control. And that realization is unsettling because humans have long believed that everything exists to serve them. In this case, the small becomes a challenge, not a challenge of strength, but of existence. It asks without words, if something so small can unsettle you, where does your power truly lie? The question does not need to be spoken, and it echoes whenever humans realize the world cannot be forced to obey their will completely. Allah does not need loud signs to teach humility. Often repetition of small disturbances is the deepest form of instruction. A creature appears again and again, not to destroy, but to remind. To remind humans they are not the sole center. To remind them that power does not equal absolute control. To remind them that life operates within an order far greater than anything humans arrange. There is a paradox humans often miss. They fear large threats because they seem capable of destruction. But they resent small things because those reveal that humans are not as all-powerful as they imagine. That is why the small is dismissed, belittled, and labeled meaningless. Not because it lacks value, but because it forces confrontation with human limitation. And in such moments, people usually try to eliminate the annoyance instead of reflecting on its message. They rush to silence discomfort rather than listen. And in doing so, they miss the lesson. Because what truly disturbs them is not the creature, but the loss of absolute control. The truth is that humans were never created to control everything. They were created to recognize their limits and live within the order Allah established. When that is forgotten, inconvenience is treated as an error in the world rather than a reminder of human reality. And here the small exposes the greatest illusion, the belief that humans can fully master existence on their own. The mosquito does not need strength to do this. It only needs to exist as it was created. And in that existence, it reveals a truth humans try to avoid. Power always comes with limits, and absolute safety is an illusion. Until this truth is accepted, the small will continue doing what it has always done, reminding humans they are not supreme rulers of this world. Humans easily revere what is large, but hastily dismiss what is small. They associate value with size, power with magnitude, intelligence with visible achievement. So when faced with a tiny, quiet creature, they conclude it is trivial and unworthy of thought. Yet this is one of perception's deepest errors. When humans slow down and observe carefully, they discover that creation's sophistication is not designed to impress, but to function perfectly. The mosquito was not created to inspire awe. It was created to exist and fulfill its role within the order Allah decreed. And within that ordinariness, the Creator's wisdom becomes unmistakable. Every part of that small creature serves a purpose. Nothing is wasted, nothing is random. From movement to survival to adaptation, everything operates within an integrated system. This is not chaotic complexity, but ordered complexity where every element knows its place. What humans often overlook is the humility of this design. Allah did not create everything to be admired visually. He created it to exist authentically. Because it does not seek attention, its wisdom is easily dismissed. Yet true wisdom never needs to announce itself. When humans assume small means simple, they project their own limitations onto creation. They forget that human understanding is bound by senses, tools, and time. Some truths reveal themselves only to those patient enough to observe, humble enough to admit ignorance, and quiet enough to reflect. It but haste replaces contemplation, and the deepest lessons are missed. Creation does not seek validation from human intellect. It exists as a sign for those willing to look beyond the surface. When humans realize even the smallest beings follow complete logic and order, they are forced to face an uncomfortable question. Is this world really random as they once believed? The lesson is not merely about structure, but about principle. Every creation has a role, limit, and purpose. Nothing exceeds its place. Nothing is forgotten. This order was not created by humans, nor can they replace it. They can only glimpse fragments, and each glimpse reveals a reality far greater than their understanding. When this awareness grows, perspective shifts. Humans stop calling the unknown meaningless. They stop equating smallness with insignificance, and they begin to see that in the smallest creations, Allah's precision is clearest, because there is no room for excess or display. Everything must be exact, balanced, and purposeful. Perhaps the deepest lesson is this: when humans learn to respect the small, they learn to respect Allah's order. When they recognize wisdom in what seems trivial, they step away from arrogance. Only by admitting that creation's wisdom surpasses human judgment can people truly open themselves to divine guidance. History is full of individuals who believed their power surpassed all limits. They did not begin by calling themselves gods. They began with small victories, unquestioned commands, and silence from others. Gradually, power became identity. And at that moment, a boundary was crossed, not political, but spiritual. Namrud was not the first to cross it, nor the last. But his story became symbolic because it exposes a recurring pattern. When power goes unchallenged, limits feel insulting. The existence of anything that reminds a ruler of being a creature becomes intolerable. What makes Namrud's downfall haunting is not its violence, but its form. No uprising, no army, no natural disaster. The end came from where no one expected, in a way no earthly power could prepare for. And that is why this story is not merely historical, but universal. Namrud believed he controlled life and death. He decided others' fate and convinced himself he possessed ultimate authority. But that belief was sustained by fear and silence. When power stops being questioned, it becomes an idol. And when humans worship their own power, they place themselves in the most dangerous position of all. A punishment did not come to display force, but to shatter illusion. A tiny creature not created as a weapon became the means to expose a truth Namrud denied his entire life. Not because it was strong, but because it appeared at the precise moment within an order beyond human control. The most terrifying part is not physical pain, but reversal. One who made nations tremble became helpless before something insignificant. Power built on fear dissolved in humiliation. History tells this story not for curiosity, but as a law. The more absolute power claims to be, the more vulnerable it becomes to what it despises. Namrud did not fail for lack of strength, but for forgetting his limits. He was not defeated by an enemy, but by the false assumption that he stood above all rules. And that is why this story transcends history, reminding every era of the same danger. Allah does not need to destroy civilizations to assert authority. Sometimes allowing a small creation to act as designed is enough. When limits are denied, collapse is no longer a question of if, but when. In the end, it was not the mosquito that defeated Namrud, it was arrogance. The small creation merely reflected a truth he refused to face. When illusions of power and control fall away, what remains is a question for humanity. Where do we stand in Allah's order? This conclusion is not meant to terrify, but to realign, to return humans to their rightful place as creation, not judges of creation. Trials are often misunderstood. They are not only loss or catastrophe. Sometimes they arrive lightly, almost unnoticed, dismissed as inconvenience. And it is in these small moments that character is revealed most clearly. The world was never promised to be perfect. It was created as a place of refinement, where every experience can become a lesson if seen properly. When this is forgotten, inconvenience becomes an error instead of a reminder. Islam does not promote blind passivity. Knowing one's place does not mean abandoning responsibility. Humans are encouraged to act, seek knowledge, and protect themselves, while remembering that outcomes are not entirely theirs. When this balance is understood, people act without arrogance, strive without obsession, and fail without despair. Small disturbances no longer feel meaningless, but instructive. One of the modern soul's greatest illnesses is forgetting its status as creation. Success becomes self-credit, control becomes delusion. And when something small disrupts that, anxiety follows. Seen correctly, these moments can heal accumulated arrogance. When humans accept that not everything revolves around them, inner peace begins. Every creation, no matter how small, exists with purpose. Nothing is meaningless, even if its meaning exceeds current understanding. Knowing one's place does not diminish humanity. It frees it. It allows humility without insecurity, faith without blindness, action without arrogance. Only when humans stop competing with the Creator do they find their true position. Perhaps the final lesson is not understanding everything, but accepting that belief does not require full comprehension. Allah does not demand humans decode the universe before bowing. He invites reflection, awareness of limits, and attentiveness to signs placed everywhere. Yet when humans pause before the small, they pause before the ego. When they humble themselves before creation, they humble themselves before the Creator. And when they recognize that nothing exists without purpose and wisdom, judgment gives way to harmony. From this story, 3 lessons emerge. First, do not rush to label inconvenience as meaningless. Second, practice humility toward the small. Third, combine effort with trust. Act fully, but remember the final outcome rests with Allah. These lessons begin with small choices: patience instead of irritation, reflection instead of judgment, humility instead of pride. Each choice is a step toward awareness. If these reflections offer you a new perspective on faith, history, and yourself, join the Prophetic History Explained community to explore more stories and subtle signs of creation. And subscribe to support content that remains thoughtful, meaningful, and honest in the videos to come.